Why is the Port Orange Building Department so criticized by the overwhelming majority of contractors, architects, tradesmen, subs, etc.?
Can you reread that one?
The Port Orange Building Department is highly criticized by the overwhelming majority of contractors, architects, tradesmen.
I am a contractor, and I do deal with the building department. And I will say, I don't necessarily believe that all the criticism is valid. What we do have is we have a plans examiner and the people who review our documentation that are very thorough to make sure that we're meeting or exceeding the codes, the designs, and the aesthetics that we want to bring to Port Orange. A lot of times when people come in there and they complain about it's hard to get a building permit or it's hard to do this, a lot of times they come in unprepared. They don't have the right documents. They don't have the right drawings that it truly takes to walk yourself through that building department. If you start with a good foundation, which is a good architect or a good set of plans, a lot of times you'll be able to get through. Now don't get me wrong, we do have a very stern plans examiner. We've been there, he's been there, he's left, and he's come back. The guy is truly an encyclopedia. And I know that if you can relate to him and listen to him, he'll tell you what you need to do, and he'll also tell your designer what you need to do. But other than that, I mean, if you come in with a good foundation, a good set of plans, I think you'll find it a little bit more easier. But don't get me wrong, I think it's because we have a firm set of rules, we have a firm set of visions of what a building is supposed to look like. You combine that with life safety, welfare, site plans, engineering, and landscaping. It's a total package that, again, for the city of Port Orange to make the next project better than the last.
One of my big themes is opening Port Orange government so that we can all come to understand the Port Orange story. I do my best to do that, and there are large holes in that understanding. I don't know the answer to your question as to why it is so difficult, but I do know it's difficult from first-hand experience. I had 3 major projects with the city. The first was, where I am located, is a subdivision. So that was a whole process. The building I'm in was a second process, and the building I built and sold was a third. I employed competent professionals, design professionals, and they wring their hands and pull their hair trying to deal with the Port Orange Building Department. I have a very good friend, a surveyor, Mike Meyer Surveying, who swore to me at the end of the last project he would never work in Port Orange again. It wasn't worth it to him. To my knowledge, he's never worked in Port Orange. Now let's go back to this secrecy, this opaque, this non-transparent operation. I would suspect there's direction, there's pressure coming down from some level, from some person, and people are trying to take conflicting direction from day to day on what it is they are meant to be doing. Now, one thing, and it's my understanding this will improve things as soon as it's implemented, design professionals, I think, are now going to be able to submit their plans electronically. That will be huge, because when my projects were done, the last one being 3 or 4 years, 5 or 6 years ago now, everything had to be submitted on paper, 10 copies at a time. So we change an I or a T or anything else, boy, you've got to send back in 12 sets of plans. So the Port Orange Building Department is a nightmare to deal with. It has been. It's acknowledged as such by design professionals in this area, and it would be my hope that in opening up, in making Port Orange government transparent, we'll be able to come to understand why it is we operate the way we do. Thank you.
I'm not going to
suggest that there's anything nefarious or that anybody's done anything under the table or anything like that. I don't know that. I'm not even going to suggest that. But I do know there are certain realities. If you take a look at this part of the town, it was developed outside of the city of Port Orange for the most part. And then you look west and you look how beautiful a lot of the newer places. New is nice, but I think you also got to take a look at, we've set a high standard for a lot of those places. We don't, you don't see signs coming out of the ground all over the place like you do in other cities. That's just an example. I think when you set a higher standard, there is going to be some more there's going to be some difficulty and some obstacles that the developer has to overcome. That's inevitable. I think that's part of the equation. That's the good part. Let's face it, it's not been the most modern of organizations, and I think that that ship's finally starting to turn. Ted mentioned the fact that we're finally starting to look at electronic submissions as something I've been crying for a long time, 4 city managers ago. However, change does not always come quickly. I think one thing that happened very well is we had our community development director that left, found out that life is not always great on the other side, and he came back from Asheville, North Carolina, because there's a lot of things that we can do right and well here. Is it a perfect organization? No, it's not. Last night, I was down here talking to 2 people who were trying to open a business, and they were talking to me all the things that they've gone through the last 2 months. We need to be able to streamline permitting better than the way we do. I think it's important to have high standards. I think those high standards are one of the reasons and one of the ways we're going to help bring this part of the city back to a place that we can be very proud of. You got to have those high standards, but we've got to have the systems, procedures, and processes in place, and that's something that we've lacked. We have not had the systems of continuous improvement to get you there. Now I'm talking, going back to my MBA a little bit and giving you business speak, but bottom line is if you have a system that doesn't work well and you come back the next day and you try to execute it the same way, it's not going to work any better. It's something that we need to continue to work on. I think that's something we've made progress in. I think some of it is simply reputation from people, the way they think. Former community development directors and the like operated things 6, 8, 10 years ago. I think we're traveling the road. We're not there yet, but I think we're traveling the road, and we can't stop.
Okay. Currently in Port Orange.
Sherry?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do I get my rebuttal? I wasn't named.
Did you specifically say your name?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to thank my opponent actually for naming me, because another thought came to my mind. And this is a personal example. When I built, the city had one definition of subdivision. They didn't break it out between residential subdivisions, commercial subdivisions, and industrial subdivisions, which is what mine was. So that one-size-fits-all definition of a subdivision required that I put in a sidewalk. Now, I don't want a sidewalk in my industrial park. I do not want to encourage people to walk in my industrial park. It's a dangerous place. Forklift, crates, tractor trailers, all day long in that place. Now, why do you think we only have one definition of subdivisions? I would submit to you here that certainly in the past, there was never a willingness to accept recommendations coming up the ranks through the Community Development Department. I hope that has changed. If given the opportunity, I will ensure that it's changed, because there are a lot of good ideas in all of our departments that in the past were stifled, and that is certainly one. Pete Zahn Engineering, my civil engineer, said, Ted, what do you want to do? Do you want to get this permitted, or do you want to stop and fight? I said, no, Pete, I want to get it done. So Pete designed a sidewalk in my subdivision. The plans went in, it got approved, and then I went for a variance. I needed to take the sidewalk right back out again, which involved hiring an attorney, have Zahn do a whole new set of plans, and it passed planning, and it ultimately passed council. But this is a royal waste of resources on everybody's part. This is what gives people a bad taste in their mouth regarding Port Orange building. Again, I hope it's changed, and if given the opportunity, I will ensure it's changed.
Okay.